Does Leviticus condemn homosexuality? No! Leviticus does not address this topic. Let me give you some context. So during this time, the Israelites were enslaved in Egypt, and God sent Moses to liberate the Israelites and send them to the Promised Land. And once they get to the Promised Land, Moses goes up to Mount Sinai and receives the 10 Commandments. The 10 Commandments are a small set compared to the rest of the 613 laws that will come later on. This is known as the Torah, or the Law, the first 5 books of the Bible. This is where Leviticus comes in. Chapter 18 is set inside a larger section called the Holiness Code. This is where God is creating all these laws so that people don't live an impure life, rather a holy life. Chapter 18 starts off with God telling his people, don't do what they do in Egypt, where you came from, and don't do what they do in the land of Canaan, where I am taking you. You are to remain holy. After that, we get a whole bunch of laws of don't do this and don't do that. And this is where we get this from. Do not lie with a male as you would with a woman, it is an abomination. So let's look closer at this. Firstly, we have to remember that the word homosexual and homosexuality in that concept was totally foreign in that time. The terminology and concept of sexual orientation is new in our world. When people say it's about homosexuality, I usually will tell them, well, where's the verse that says woman should not lie with woman as with man? They might say, well, it's implied. The problem, though, is that if you keep reading, it says a man should not lie with an animal, and then it says a woman should not lie with an animal. So if it's supposed to be implied, then there should be a verse condemning women with women. But what about Romans 1? We're not talking about Romans 1, we're talking about the law, God's law. Thirdly, every single nation considered male-male sex as an abomination because it's not procreative. And at this time, procreation was the essential essence of what marriage was. And during this time, patriarchy was the center focus in society. No different for the Israelites. A man being treated like a woman brought dishonor. So essentially, we don't know why this law is here. It could be because it wasn't procreative or it wasn't patriarchal during that time, but applying this law today has many issues. God concludes this chapter by saying, I gave you all of these laws so that you would be holy and separate from all the nations. But with Jesus, God is doing a whole new thing. For us Christians, we follow the law of Christ, which is love God and love your neighbor. Any of the Old Testament laws can be thrown out as long as it keeps an essence of the law of Christ. But this verse is not about homosexuality.